This is my new mobile workbench. As you can see, it is very, very, very mobile. So this is probably one of the quickest benches that I've seen that sets up as quickly as it does. So unfortunately, this isn't my design as much as I would like it to be my design. But this sets up super, super quick. So there is a couple of hooks, or catches if you will. The bench top comes up, the legs go down, and to lock the legs into place, we have the shelf. Shelf has a couple of little hook sections. And that's the bench setup, super, super quick. Storage wise, how I've built this is that in the bottom section I have a multi-tool. I have my sustainer with my Festool track saw, the charger. And in this drawer, I do have quite a lot of power tools. The underside shelf is really cool. I really like the underside shelf. There's a lot of room to get a lot of your tools that you'd have on the bench out of the way when you need to get, you know, your bench clear for whatever reason. Another thing I like about the shelf is that when you use your track saw, the track saw itself stores away out of the way. It's off the top of the bench, allowing you to use the bench for whatever you want to use it for. And I do really like the fact that I can put the track out of the way. It's a really good idea. The top is ply. I did put some dog holes in it, and this is solely just to allow for some clamping. This is not extensive. I didn't do the 96mm centers. I personally didn't feel I would need that or I would benefit from it, so I didn't take the time to do that. The bench top is actually removable. This is 3/4 inch plywood. At a later date, if I choose to do so, I could replace this with a machined MDF MFT top if I choose to do that. That option is there. There is also some dog holes on the side, so if I choose to, I could actually put some dog holes in here. There's a couple of dog holes. I may put more in, I'm not overly sure yet. Obviously, dog holes in the legs, and if I wanted to put something on there, I could. And then I can actually just clamp to the side. There's actually smaller dog holes at the side that I can clamp to. So if I had a large panel, something I could do would be to put the panel on like so if I wanted to plane the edge of this, and I can quite simply drop the expensive panel. So if I choose to, I can actually get that clamped up, and I would be good to plane this. Obviously I could stick another clamp on here and clamp it to the leg if I choose to do that. Obviously this packs away as quick as it sets up, and it's on wheels, so you can be done and dusted out of the way within 5-10 minutes, which is really cool, and that's the whole premise of why I've built this. So if you are interested in building this and you want to see how I've built it, keep watching. So when I started this build, I did have a rough idea of what I wanted to do, and I did actually pre-cut some plywood off camera, and yeah, you can just basically see in me, you know, kind of trying things out and seeing if things are going to work the way I want them to work, which obviously they did. So to put this construction together, And because I've just getting this little jig, this is the Peanuts mini jig, I decided to use it, and it is pretty good. It got everything nice and aligned. I didn't have to use any clamps or anything when I put the thing together, which is really good. I'm just knocking in the Peanuts themselves. These have got to be tapped in, and then they've got to be screwed in place. When I'd got all the Peanuts done, the male and female parts, I did actually remove some of the material before I started gluing this together, so you can see where I've cut squares out. So basically, me cutting the squares out, that was just to minimise the weight, and I did actually lose quite a bit of weight doing this. So when that was done, just applied some glue and put the thing together. So the good thing about the Peanut jig is that there's no clamps and there's no alignment needed. Once you've got everything drilled and routed into place, everything just taps together as so. Really good little bit of kit. It does take a little bit of getting used to, but I'm pretty glad I used it on this. I think it did save us a lot of faffing about, if I'm honest. Once the glue had dried, I then proceeded to put the wheels on. So here you can see us putting in some M8 bolts, and I put a spacer on, or basically a nuts, and I put the wheels on. So the wheels, I got these from Amazon. These are scooter wheels, and they are 200mm in diameter. So there you can see he's putting some super glue just to lock the nuts together. I didn't have any Loctite, so how long this is going to last I don't know, but I'm pretty sure I am going to have to come back and use some Loctite. Yeah, I'm super gluing the front feet on. This was just to get them into place while I added some screws. I am actually going to remove these. I think the whole system is going to benefit from putting some table leg heighteners on the front as well as the legs, which you'll see us do later in the video. Now I'm just figuring out where the placement of the hinge section for the bench top is going to be. I did actually take my time with this. This is pretty important. You want everything to hinge, correctly and smoothly, or otherwise, if anything's misaligned, it's going to cause you problems. So as I said, I did take my time with this. I rounded the corner off so it didn't interfere with the bench top, and I glued and screwed this into place. Before I put the top frame together, I removed a little bit of material, and this was to accommodate the track for the track saw. So it was a bit fiddly, but a little bit of patience and I did get them out okay. And I have to admit, I'm really happy with that little space where I can put the tracks to get them out of the way. I glued and screwed the bench frame together. Nice and simple, nothing complicated about this. I put the thing together just to see if everything was working as it should. Basically the top frame was hinging as it should. Once I was happy, I added the top just to get a bit of a feel of, you know, the size of the bench and, you know, how it was going to work, so on and so forth. I did have a little lip, so I did have to remove this just because there is more framework going on the outside. With the extra framework, I just glued it, clamped it into place, and I just put a few brads into it just to keep it in place till the glue dried. Because I did add the extra framework, I did have to re-drill the hole just to accept the M8 bolt at the top of the carcass. I then moved on to the hinge section. So the hinge section for the legs, the two front legs. So this is a bit funny how it's been designed, but it is clever at the same time. So basically it's acting as a hinge and there is a little section for a catch. So I did also have to remove some of the material so it sits over the bottom of the framework, and all this will become clear once you see us put it in place, and as the build progresses you will see how it works. Once I got everything shaped, I glued and screwed this into place, and there you can see a little bit how it's going to work. Next up, I drilled for the M8 bolts that will fit the leg to the hinge section. So after that, I got it clamped into place, and I used the hole that I just drilled for the leg as a pilot or a guide, if you will, and went straight into the hinge section. One corner of the top of the leg needs to be rounded over, and this is because the top of the leg actually makes contact with the underside of the frame, and if you don't put a round over on, it won't be able to hinge correctly. So to add some additional strength and also to add a little section where the under shelf will hook onto, I did mark out for some rails, and I just done some housing very quickly, just used me chisels, done this by hand. Very quick it was to do. Once the joints were cut, I added some glue and tapped these home. I did actually add some screws to the middle of the joints a little bit later, which I didn't record. Something to add here as well, when I did actually cut these joints, I turned the legs around because these actually want to be facing to the inside. So that's something to note if you are actually making one of these. Once the glue had dried, I trimmed these down and I took a little bit of the thickness away with the plane. I then started adding some dog holes in the top. So what I did do off camera, I used my little drill alignment tool and I used a 4mm bit, and that acted as a pilot hole. So this 3/4 inch bit that I'm using now, it was guided by that, and to be honest with you, it's quite accurate doing it that way. And I've done this with a few things. Once that was done, I put the thing together, made sure everything was fitting as it should. I put the top on and fitted the legs. I then glued and screwed 2 sections on at the end, as you can see is doing now, and this is to take dogs so I can actually clamp things to the side of the bench. Next up was the hook section for the undershelf. So the undershelf is really important. When you make the undershelf, if you're going to make this, it needs to be some sort of a hooking section. So I've just made some hooks up, as you can see is doing now, with some ply, just scraps of ply. But basically the shelf itself hooks to the carcass and to the leg section, and it basically stops the front legs from moving in or out, so it adds a lot of stability. And when you add weight to the bench with tools that you're getting out of the way, it actually helps to steady the bench up even more. So it is a clever little design. Here I'm just making the handle slides. So basically the handle basically just slides through it and allows the handle to go down when you put the bench top down. Once I had them made up, I just glued and screwed these into position. It definitely should be glued and screwed. This section is going to take a lot of abuse when you're pulling it around, especially if you intend on taking this on site. So if it's going to be moved around a lot and dragged about a lot, it makes sense to actually, you know, fix this the best you can. I added the handle next, and I used some straight grained oak for this. I made a very quick and dirty drawer for the front, and this was just to house some of the power tools I have. Very quick, very easy, just glue, and Brad nailed it together. Really quick to make. I added a front panel section, and this is basically just to stop anything from falling out of the bottom, basically the Festool Sustainer with my track saw in it, and my little multi-tool which I'm actually using now. So how I overcome this, I've just put 2 pins in the bottom. Those are actually nails, and they sit into corresponding holes, which you can see is drilling now. And basically you'll see is add some toggles, and when something wants to come out, it basically can't because it's hitting the toggles and you've got the pins at the bottom. But the panel at the front will come all the way off, which is a good thing, so it's not going to hinder us when I'm trying to get things in or out. Because I did actually think about putting the door in, but I decided against that. And the final job was to add these catches or hooks, and these are just to stop the bench from opening up while it's in transport, and they actually work very well. So that's it for this one, guys. Let us know what you think of the bench. Would you actually build one of these? Would you take it on site? You know, let us know in the comments.